There's a woman I want you to picture. She's in her 80s. She lives alone in the house she raised her family in, on a street in Minnesota where the winters are long. And the neighbors used to know each other, and this spring, her children are coming to tell her she can't stay. They're not cruel. They love her. They've made a decision, and they've rehearsed it in the car. What they don't know, what they're about to find out, is what she's been doing every Thursday morning since the fall. This is her story. Her name is Gloria. She has been a widow for 2 years now, long enough that people have stopped asking how she's holding up, and not long enough that she stopped noticing they've stopped. Here is what nobody warns you about. It isn't the grief. Everyone prepares you for the grief. It's the sound. For 53 years, there was another person breathing in that house. Somebody dropping a shoe upstairs. Somebody turning a page. You don't hear those things while they're happening. You only hear them once they're gone, and then you hear nothing else. She wakes at 5. She has always woken at 5. That was the hour that belonged to her, before the children, before the work, back when 5 in the morning was the only room in the day with nobody else in it. Now the whole day is that room. So one morning in October at 5 o'clock, with nothing in particular to do, she takes down the mixing bowl. She doesn't decide to. That's the part I want you to understand. There's no moment where she squares her shoulders and resolves to start living again. That's how it happens in films, and it isn't how it happens in kitchens. She just takes down the bowl. Because it's there. Because her hands know where it is without being told. She makes a loaf of bread. She hasn't made bread in 4 years. She stopped when he got sick, and then afterward there was no one to eat it. But her hands don't seem to have been informed of any of that. The hands go on ahead of her. They knead, they turn, they wait. And at 20 minutes to 7 in the morning, the house smells like it used to. She stands in the middle of her kitchen and she cries. Not much and not for long, and she'd deny it if you asked. Then she eats 2 slices, and the rest of the loaf sits on the counter, because there is nobody else in the house. Here is the practical difficulty of being an old woman who bakes. You cannot bake for one. The recipes don't scale down. 50 years of cooking for a family taught her hands a certain arithmetic, and her hands do not want to learn a new one. So she bakes for 6, and she is 1. The first week, she throws it out. That bothers her more than she expects. Her generation does not throw out food. That was a rule. And rules like that outlive the reason for them. The second week, she does something small. She puts half the loaf on a plate, a real plate, not a paper one, because she is not the kind of woman who gives food away on a paper plate. And she walks it 4 doors down to the young family with the porch light that's always on. She doesn't knock. She sets it down and leaves. Now, here is the thing about a real plate. A real plate has to come back. That is the whole mechanism. That is the entire quiet engine of what happens next. And I don't think she planned it, though I've wondered sometimes if some part of her did. Because 3 days later, there's a knock, and it's the young father from 4 doors down holding her plate, washed, and he says thank you. And he stands there a moment too long, the way people do, when they have more to say and no permission to say it. So she says, "There's coffee." He stays 40 minutes. He tells her his wife works nights. He tells her the baby doesn't sleep. He tells her he doesn't really know anyone on this street, which is a strange thing to be able to say about the place where you live. She doesn't give him advice. She has learned by now that most people who are talking do not want advice. She just lets him keep going until he's finished. By November, there are 2 of them. The young father brings the widower from the corner house, a man in his 70s who has not, by his own accounting, had a conversation before noon in 3 years. By January, there are 4. There's a woman who works a shift at the hospital and stops in on her way, still in her scrubs, and eats standing up because she's always about to be late. There's a retired schoolteacher who talks too much and knows it and can't stop. By March, there are 6. They come on Thursdays. Nobody chose Thursday. Thursday chose itself, the way these things do. And you have to understand what a Minnesota winter does to a street. From November to April, nobody is outside. Everyone goes from the car to the door with their head down. 6 people driving through the dark at 7 in the morning to sit in someone's kitchen. That is not a small thing. That is a decision they make every week. They are not friends exactly, not at first. They are 6 people who happen to live near each other and did not know each other's names a year ago, sitting in an old woman's kitchen eating bread. And here is what Gloria does every Thursday, which is the most useful thing anyone on that street does all week. She listens. She pours the coffee and she asks one real question, and then she is quiet and she lets people talk. She is very good at it. She has had a great deal of practice. 53 years of marriage, 4 children, a lifetime of being the one everybody told things to. That skill did not retire when she did. Nobody ever told her it was worth anything. Now I have to tell you about her daughter. Her name is Helen. She's 56. She lives 2 hours south. And she loves her mother, and she has not been to the house since Christmas. I want to be careful here because it would be easy to make Helen a villain, and she isn't one. She is something more common than a villain and harder to look at. She is a woman who means to call and doesn't, who thinks about her mother most days and calls her twice a month, who tells herself that things are busy right now, and has been telling herself that for a number of years now, and hasn't noticed that right now has become a permanent condition. She's worried about her mother. That worry is real. Her mother is alone in a big house with a staircase and a driveway that has to be shoveled 4 months out of the year. And Helen lies awake sometimes doing the arithmetic that adult children do in the dark. So she and her brother have decided there's a place 40 minutes from Helen. It's clean. It's well reviewed. They have a brochure. And on a Thursday morning in April, the first Thursday all year the roads are clear, Helen drives north to her mother's house to have the conversation. She rehearses it in the car. She has rehearsed it for a week. She arrives at 7:10. There are 4 cars parked along the street in front of her mother's house. Helen sits in her own car for a moment, and she cannot make sense of it. Her first thought, and she is ashamed of this later, her first thought is that something has happened, that she is too late, that the cars mean an ambulance has been, that there are people inside dealing with her mother. She goes up the walk fast, and through the storm door she can hear something she has not heard in that house in a very long time, laughing. She opens the door and she stands in the entryway of the house she grew up in, and she looks into the kitchen. There are 6 people at her mother's table. a young man with a baby asleep against his shoulder, an old man in a cardigan, a woman in scrubs, standing, eating, a talkative fellow gesturing with a piece of bread, and her mother at the head of the table in the chair she has sat in for 50 years, pouring coffee and asking somebody a question. Nobody sees Helen for a full minute. She just stands there, and she holds a brochure in her hand, in a house full of people who came to see her mother on a Thursday morning of their own free will, and who talked to her more in 1 week than her own daughter has in a year. Gloria sees her, and her face opens up, and she says, "Helen, come and sit. There's a chair." And the 6 people at the table turn around, and they all know who she is. That's the part that undoes her. They all know who she is. They know her name and her children's names and what she does for a living. They know she was the one who is afraid of thunderstorms. They know things about herself she has forgotten, because her mother has been talking about her every Thursday to a table full of people with obvious and uncomplicated pride. Helen sits down. Somebody hands her a plate. She stays 2 hours. I want to be honest with you about how this ends, because I don't think it ends the way you'd like it to. It didn't end that way for a lot of families. Helen does not stand up at that table and announce that her mother is staying in the house. Nothing is decided. The stairs are still stairs, and the driveway will still need shoveling in November, and the arithmetic she does at night has not changed. The brochure stays in her bag. She never takes it out, but she does 2 things. At the door, when she's leaving, she asks her mother a question she has never once asked her in 56 years. She asks, "Can I come next Thursday?" And her mother says, "Yes, of course you can," in the voice of a woman trying very hard to sound as though this is a small thing. And the second thing, Helen sits in her car at the end of the driveway, and she does not start the engine for a while, and she takes out her phone, and she puts a recurring event in her calendar. Every Thursday, 7 in the morning. It's not an apology. It isn't nearly enough. It's a woman in her 50s realizing that the thing she was about to arrange for her mother, company, a table, people who ask how she is, her mother had already built for herself, and that nobody had built it for her. I've been thinking about what Gloria actually did that October morning, and I don't think it was baking. Baking was the excuse. Bread was the excuse. What she did was give people a reason to come to the door. And then, when they came, she gave them the thing she was best at and nobody wanted any more. She listened. That generation is full of extraordinary listeners. They were raised to it. They sat through long silences without needing to fill them. They asked one question and then got out of the way. They knew, the way you only know it after 50 years of marriage, after bearing people, after raising children who moved away, that most of what a person needs is somebody who will let them finish a sentence. And we have decided, as a culture, that they are the ones who need looking after. We have gotten it precisely backwards. The loneliest people on that street were not the woman in her 80s. They were the young father whose wife works nights, the nurse eating standing up, the daughter 2 hours south, with her mother's number in her phone and a reason not to call it today. She wasn't the one who needed the table. She was the one who set it. That was today's story. If you watched this and thought of someone, a person in your life who lived through their own version of this, call them this week. Tell them you were thinking about them. That's the thing this story is really about. And if you're looking for ways to bring a regular human voice into an older person's week, Grand Companion pairs older adults with real companions for ongoing conversations. Our service is built entirely on real human relationships, focusing on combating loneliness, sharing stories, and bringing consistent joy to the seniors in our lives. Whether it's catching up on family news, sharing a favorite hobby, or just having someone reliable to talk to, we're here to bridge that gap. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to support the channel, and drop a comment below if you're interested in learning more about Grand Companion. Until next time.